Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Dirshu Mishnah Berurah share. We are holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Hey. Today's daf in the Dirshu daf Yomi Bahalacha is Kuf Beis Amid Aleph. We're actually starting near the bottom of Kuf Aleph Amid Beis. We began Hilchas Yomtiv. We're in Siman Tav Tzadik Hey, and we begin today on Kuf Aleph Amid Beis with Sif Beis, and we are discussing various malachas that are mutter or aser on Yomtiv. Says the Mechaber in Sif Beis, Kitzira, harvesting, utechina, grinding, for instance, grinding wheat into flour, ubetzira, or harvesting grapes, even though betzira and kitzira are essentially the same malacha. Kitzira is by produce, betzira is by grapes, uschita, or squeezing out fruits, squeezing the juices out of fruits, vitzida, or trapping, afal pi shehem meleches eichel nefesh, even though all of these malachas could be construed as being malachas that are required for eichel nefesh. If somebody wants to make a nice fresh challah and he doesn't have flour, so he wants to go first harvest some wheat, and then he wants to go grind it into flour, or he wants wine, so he wants to go pick some grapes, and then he wants to press them. I guess he's not going to get wine, but he can get grape juice. Schita, that would involve schita as well. Tzida, somebody wants to have some nice fresh meat, so he wants to go trap an animal. Even though these could be considered eichel nefesh, and therefore you might think that they should be mutter on Yom Tov, asarum chachamim, the chachamim said that these malachos are aser even on Yom Tov, even in the case of eichel nefesh. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah, Ais Katan Aleph, Kitzira, harvesting. Mishnah Berurah says that it's not only these malachas that are mentioned specifically by the Mechaber, there are other malachas as well that are also aser, even in the case of eichel nefesh. For hu adin, the same halacha applies. Disha, threshing. You want to thresh the wheat, so you're going to break it up to be able to separate the kernel from the chaff. Vaharkada, sifting. Ukahai gavna. All of these malachas are aser. Ais Katan Yud Beis Usechita. What the Mechaber means to say is lischait haperos, to squeeze peros, lahaitzi mehen shamnon v'yenon, to extract from them their oil or their wine. So it would be, let's say, squeezing grapes to extract the grape juice, or squeezing olives to extract the oil. La'achila b'yom tov, and you're doing this because you want to enjoy the grape juice, or let's say the olive oil on Yom Tov. So therefore, you would tend to look at this as being eichel nefesh, and you would think it's mutter on Yom Tov. Kamash balan the Mechaber that these are aser. Now the Mechaber said asarum chachamim, that the chachamim said that these halachas are aser. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cut you gimel asarum chachamim demin atayra kol malacha shehu ba'eichel nefesh mutter. So the Chavetz Chaim tells us that the reason the Mechaber wrote that these are isurei d'Rabbanan is because the opinion of the Mechaber is that really any malacha at all that is being done for eichel nefesh is mutter mid'araisa on Yom Tov. And therefore, let's say kitzira, you want to go harvest something, you want to cut something off of the ground to be able to eat it on Yom Tov. So according to the Mechaber, really mid'araisa, that should be mutter. Ella, however, chachamim asru dvarim shehem avodah rabba kegoin hani. However, the chachamim made an issur d'Rabbanan, and any kind of malacha that entails a large body of work, and we'll define that more in a moment, the chachamim aser. And now the Chavetz Chaim explains what he means. Shaha'adam ragil liktzar sadehu, a person is generally in the habit of harvesting his entire crop, v'livtzar karmai, or to harvest all of the grapes in his vineyard, ke'echad. You do it generally in one fell swoop. You decide today I'm going to do the harvest, and you get out into the field and you harvest all the wheat. If you see that the grapes are ripe and it's time to harvest the grapes, you say, okay, today I'm going out to harvest the grapes. You don't, generally speaking, go out to the vineyard and pick 5 grapes, and then tomorrow go out and pick another 10 grapes. You don't decide, I'm in the mood of a glass of grape juice. I'll go pick a few grapes now. That's not the way it's done. If you have a vineyard, you harvest your vineyard at one shot. If you're in the wheat business and you planted wheat, you harvest your whole crop at one shot. So that's a large body of work. V'lidroich kol hanavav ke'echad. Typically, somebody will press all of his grapes at once. V'litchayin harbe b'pamachas. Similarly, if you're in the business of milling wheat, so you're going to harvest all your wheat, and then you're going to prepare it, and then when it's time to grind it into flour, you're going to go ahead and book the mill, and you're going to go grind all of your wheat into flour. You're not going to say, oh, my wife needs 5 cups of flour, I'm going to go grind 5 cups of flour. V'im kain. So since these malachas are generally done a lot at one time, if we're going to be matir those malachas on Yom Tov, v'im kain yitared kol hayom ba'avodasai, it will come out that the whole day of Yom Tov, a person is busy with his work. A person will decide, oh, Kitzira is mutter, Eichel Nefesh. So you know what? I'll do all my Kitzira on Shavuos. I'll harvest my wheat crop on Shavuos. V'yamonem is Simchas Yom Tov. And he will refrain from enjoying Simchas Yom Tov. You're not supposed to look at Yom Tov as a day on the calendar when you could go and take care of all of your flour grinding. And that's not what Yom Tov is. So the Chachamim were afraid that if they're going to allow these kind of malachas to be mutter on Yom Tov, even though, again, according to the Mechaber, Midaraisa, they are mutter, but the Chazal looked at it and they said, if we're going to allow these kind of malachas to be mutter, it could come out that somebody will be busy the entire Yom Tov and Yom Tov will be lost. And therefore, Asr Chachamim, the Chachamim asered this kind of malacha on Yom Tov. Va'afilu al yidei shinui aser. And these malachas, says the Chavetz Chaim, according to the Mechaber, these malachas are aser even al yidei shinui. V'hinichu beheteron, and which malachas did they leave on the daraisa? Which malachas did they leave to be mutter for Eichel Nefesh? V'hinichu beheteron, they left in their status of heter, rak dvarim shemistamahin rak l'tzarech achilas Yom Tov. The kind of things that are only done for what you need to eat on Yom Tov. Cooking, you're gonna go make some food. You're gonna go make latkes for a side dish. You're not making latkes on Shavuos for Hanukkah. So we're not afraid that you're gonna spend your whole day making latkes. You need to make a roast for Yom Tov. You're making a roast for Yom Tov. We're not afraid that you're now gonna prepare all the meat that you need for the next 6 months. That's not the way things usually are. However, says the Chavetz Chaim, the Harbe Paiskim Cholkin, we find that there are many Paiskim that differ with the Mechaber on this. The Sovereign, and they hold the Meleches Avodah Hanal, that these kind of malachas that we're discussing over here, these kind of malachas like Kitzira and Techina, Aser min HaTorah afilu ba'Eichel Nefesh. They hold that these kind of malachas are even Aser min da'araisa, even in the case of Eichel Nefesh on Yom Tov. V'lohi tira HaTorah ba'Eichel Nefesh. The Torah Hakdosha was not matir malacha on Yom Tov for Eichel Nefesh, elamashu derech lasais liyoim zeh. Only the types of things that you generally speaking only do for today. Kegoin, for example, the malachas that are malisha va'afia ve'elech, from the kneading of the dough through the baking of the dough. Ukahai gavna malacha shem l'tzarech achila b'yom tov. The type of malachas that you're generally doing now because you need the food now. So if we're matir those malachas on Yom Tov, it's going to be clear we're matir those malachas, and you're allowed to do them for Eichel Nefesh for today. But these other kind of malachas that are malachas that people do a lot at one time and to cover what they need for a long period of time, that the Torah was never matir, even for Eichel Yom Tov. Uprate dinim elu, and the details of these laws, Yisparu b'simanim habayim, will be explained in greater detail in the coming simanim. Kol echad ve'echad b'mekaymai. Each one of these malachas will be discussed in greater detail in its proper place in Hilchos Yom Tov. Okay, now we go to the top of Kuf Beis Amud Aleph to Siv Gimel. Says the Mechaber, Ein moitziin masa al habehema b'yom tov. You're not allowed, literally what this means is, you're not allowed to be mitzi. You're not allowed to take out a load on an animal on Yom Tov. So again, translated literally, the halacha of the Mechaber would seem to be that you can't put a load on an animal in Rishus HaYachid and take it out from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim on the animal on Yom Tov. Now we call Hachnasa also Hitzah. Those of you who remember learning Hilchos Hitzah together, we call also if you bring something from Rishus HaRabim into Rishus HaYachid, that's Hachnasa, you bring it in, but we refer to that as Hitzah as well. So taken literally, the words of the Mechaber would seem to mean that you cannot transfer a load between two different Rishuyos. You can't transfer a load from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim or from Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYachid on an animal on Yom Tov. Now let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah, Eis Katan Yudal, Ein Moitzi and Maso. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Lefi Das Hagah, according to the opinion of the Ramah in his Hagah, La'el Siman Reish Mem Vav, that we had earlier in Siman Reish Mem Vav in Hilchos Shabbos Siv Gimel, De'ein Adam Mitzuva al Shvisas Behemtoi. It's the opinion of the Ramah that there is no chiyuv of Shvisas Behemtoi on Yom Tov. What is Shvisas Behemtoi? We know that on Shabbos, a person is mitzvah, a person is commanded to ensure that his animal does not perform malacha on Shabbos. Laman yanuach sharcha avachamarcha. The pasuk says that even your animals have to rest on Shabbos. So on Shabbos, there is a chiyuv of shvisas behemtoi. You have to make sure that your animal is not doing any malacha. Is there such a chiyuv on Yom Tov? Is there a chiyuv of shvisas behemtoi on Yom Tov? That is a machlokes. The opinion of the Ramah is that there is no chiyuv of shvisas behemtoi on Yom Tov. When it comes to regular malacha, when it comes to the lamites malachas, Yom Tov is compared to Shabbos. The same way on Shabbos there's an isser to perform any of the lamites malachas, on Yom Tov there's also an isser to perform any of the lamites malachas. But shvisas behemtoi is a different isser. It has nothing to do with the lamites malachas. Is there a chiyuv of shvisas behemtoi on Yom Tov? The Ramah says no. So if you go according to the opinion of the Ramah, how do we understand this halacha that Mechaber just said? So let's take a look at what the Mishnah Berurah says. Lefi das hagal el siman reish mem vav. According to the opinion of the Ramah earlier in Siman Reish Mem Vav Siv Gimel, De'ein Adam Mitzvah al Shvisas Behemtoi, that says that there is no chiyuv of Shvisas Behemtoi on Yom Tov. So then why would there be an isser to transfer a load on an animal on Yom Tov? What's the problem? Tzarech Loimar, the Chavetz Chaim says, you must say, Tahacha einay elo isur d'Rabbanan ba'alma. This isser that the Mechaber is talking about, when the Mechaber says you can't transfer that load on the animal on Yom Tov, it's not an isser d'oraisa, it's not shvisas behemtoi. There is no isser, there is no chiyuv shvisas behemtoi on Yom Tov. So what's the problem? The problem is an isser d'Rabbanan. What's the isser d'Rabbanan? Shalayase kederach shehu oisa b'chayil im behemtoi. We don't want you working with your animals on Yom Tov the same way you work with your animals during the week. Why? Because that would bring zilzul Yom Tov if you're going to be busy moving things around with your animal on Yom Tov, the same way you do it during the week. So that's a zilzul Yom Tov. What kind of Yom Tov is that? That's not Yom Tov, Dick. Yom Tov, you're out in the field moving things around with your animal. So this would be an Issa D'Rabbanan. Va'afilu l'tzarech Yom Tov. And it would be usher even if what you're doing is really a tzarech Yom Tov. Doesn't matter, because it is a D'Rabbanan. You're not allowed to work with your animals on Yom Tov. Va'afilu b'rishus echad mimakam l'makam. Not only that, but if the Isser over here is an Isser D'Rabbanan, and I would say that this Isser D'Rabbanan is similar to the Isser D'Rabbanan of Uvda D'Chayil on Shabbos. We know that there are things that are usher on Shabbos because of Uvda D'Chayil. That's a weekday activity. That's not a Shabbos activity. It's a little bit of a difficult chiyuv to tie down Uvda D'Chayil. Exactly what the geder of Uvda D'Chayil is a complicated sugya. But I'll give you an example. Here on Staten Island, where you could travel on the train for all the way from Tottenville, all the way to 2 or 3 stops before the ferry, and it's free. And everybody on the island knows that it's free. So everybody on the island knows that you could get on a train in Pleasant Plains, and you could go to Great Kills, to Eltigville train station, and get off, and there's no fare. Okay, what's the problem of taking the train on Shabbos? Let's say you have a tzarech. I'm not even talking you're going for a joyride. Let's say you live in the yeshiva community like I do, and it's during the summer, and most people went away, and there's no minyan. But there's a minyan in Eltigville. So somebody wants to get on the train in Pleasant Plains, and he wants to go to the Eltigville train station, and then walk a few blocks to the shul in Eltigville to have a minyan. What is there? There's no way that by stepping on the train, you're increasing the workload of the train and making the train work harder. That's not a problem. So what problem is there? There's no maris ayin that you're paying because everybody knows that the train is free. Well, what's the problem? The problem is uvda d'chayil. That's the problem. The problem is that taking the train is a weekday activity because people use the train to go to work. They use the train to go shopping. They use the train. So it's a weekday activity. Riding a bike. You want to get on a bike, on a regular two-wheel bike, and you want to go for a bike ride. What's the problem with a bike ride? If there's an Erev, what's the problem with a bike ride? The problem is that riding a bike is uvda d'chayil because people do use their bikes to commute to work. So riding a bike is uvda d'chayil. The Yisr D'Rabbanan over here in Ois Katan Yudala that the Chavetz Chaim is talking about is working with your animal on Yom Tov. If it's an Yisr D'Rabbanan, if there's no chiyuv of shvisas behemtoi, so it's an Yisr D'Rabbanan of uvda d'chayil. That's what it is. And therefore, says the Chavetz Chaim by Ois Katan Chaf of the Shar HaTzion in Ois Katan Yudala here, Va'afilu b'rishos echem mimakom l'makom. This uvda d'chayil problem exists even if you're out in your field and your field is surrounded by bona fide mechitzas. So your field is a rishus hayachid. It's a complete rishus hayachid. So by moving a load around with the animal, there's no question of haitzah. What isser is there? And there's no isser of mechamer because the animal's not doing malacha. There's no malacha. He's not doing a malacha. There's no malacha in moving a load around in a rishus hayachid. So why is it aser? It's aser because of uvda d'chayil. Now, if you learn the mechaber this way, if you learn the mechaber here in Siv Dalet, that the mechaber is referring to this kind of Yisr D'Rabbanan of uvda d'chayil, then says the Chavetz Chaim, well, if he's there, according to this, Lashain ein moitziin lav dafka. Then when the mechaber said that ein moitziin, I'm sorry, Siv Gimel in the mechaber, ein moitziin masa, you can't be moitzi a load on an animal on Yom Tov. That lashon of moitziin is really lav dafka. It's not precise because, like I said earlier, haitzah is when you transfer something from one type of rishus to another type of rishus. But we're saying over here that this Yisr D'Rabbanan that the mechaber is referring to exists even inside one rishus. Even moving a load around in rishus hayachid itself would also be a problem of uvda d'chayil. So then the lashon of ein moitziin is lav dafka. That's one opinion. However, says the Chavetz Chaim, Ula'el b'Siman Reish Mem Vav Sif Katan Yud Tes, earlier in Siman Reish Mem Vav and Sif Yud Tes, Heveinu, we brought down Das HaChokim, the opinion of those who differ, the opinion of those who hold that there is a chiyuv of shvisas behemtoi on Yom Tov. Dadam mitzuva al shvisas behemtoi b'Yom Tov k'may b'Shabbos, that there is a chiyuv of shvisas behemtoi on Yom Tov the same way there is on Shabbos. And certainly, if what you're doing is you're being mechamer achar behemtoi, that means that you're doing something to make the animal move. If you're pushing the animal or you're leading the animal with your hand or you're kicking the animal with your foot to make him go, that's a separate Isser Lav of mechamer. So if there's a chiyuv of shvisas behemtoi on Yom Tov, the same way there is on Shabbos, then by making the animal move a load on Shabbos, so okay, that's if you're making the animal take a load from one rishus to another rishus, you have two different isurim over here. You have one isur of shvisas behemtoi by making your animal move a load from rishus hayachid to rishus harabim, or from rishus harabim to rishus hayachid. You're having your animal do malacha. So now you're transgressing the chiyuv of shvisas behemtoi. And if you're making him do it with your hand or with your foot, then you're also transgressing the isser of mechamer. Mechamer is a separate lav, which is when you induce your animal to do malacha. If you lead your animal to do malacha, that's an isser lav of mechamer. Now, the isser lav of mechamer, incidentally, is only when the animal is actually doing a maleches isser. In other words, if you lead your animal who's carrying a load from rishus hayachid to rishus harabim, so then the animal is doing an isser daraisa. The animal is transferring a load from one rishus to another rishus. By you leading the animal to make that transfer, you're over the lav of mechamer. But if an animal is not being is not doing malacha, if an animal is not performing meleches iser, so you want to take your horse and you want to lead your horse inside your rishus hayachid, so the animal is not doing any meleches iser, then there is no iser lav of mechamer. Uladeyazu, according to this opinion, says the Chavetz Chaim, asi shaper kipshutai. Then we can understand Siv Gimel over here in a very simple way. V'isur daraisa kamar mechamer. The mechamer is talking about an isur daraisa. The mechamer says, ein moitziin masa. You cannot transfer a load from one rishus to another rishus al habehema on an animal b'yomtiv. Why? Because you're transgressing shvisas behemtai. You're allowing your animal to do a meleches iser by transferring a load from one rishus to another. So you're being over on shvisas behemtai. And if you lead him with your hand or you kick it with your foot, so then you're also over the iser lav of mechamer. V'daim, you should know, says the Mishnah Berurah, im naimar di'ei shvisas behema b'yomtiv. If you hold like the Shita, who says that there is a chiyuv of shvisas behemtai on yomtiv, then shaykh bazek kol adinim hane'emorim be'inyan zeh le'el b'hilchos Shabbos siman shin hey. Then all of the halachas that we saw about shvisas behemtai that are listed in siman shin hey would apply over here on yomtiv as well. Okay. Now we go to a somewhat complicated sif over here. Let's take a look at sif daled. Says the mechaber, muktzah. Now, when the mechaber mentions muktzah over here, he's really mentioning a specific type of muktzah. And that is that in Hilchos Shabbos, in Siman Shin Yud, we learned that there are things that are technically muktzah. Let's remember what the word muktzah means. Muktzah is the opposite of muchan. Muchan means that something is prepared for use on Shabbos. Muktzah means that something is separated from use on Shabbos. Huktzah midaitoi. It's pushed out of his mind. A person does not expect to use this item on Shabbos. Something that's muchan, something that's prepared for Shabbos use, is mutter on Shabbos. Something that's a muktzah, something that there is absolutely no expectation that it's not roy for use on Shabbos, that is aser b'tiltel because it's muktzah. That's how we generally look at muktzah. However, there are certain things that are technically muktzah, meaning that you have no expectation of using them on Shabbos, and yet they are mutter b'tiltel. That's the kind of muktzah that the mechaber is referring to here in Siv Daled. So says the mechaber, muktzah, these kind of muktzah items, and we'll define what kinds of items these are. Afal pisha mutter b'Shabbos, even though items of this type are mutter b'tiltel on Shabbos, hechmiru by b'yomtiv, the Chazal ruled stringently on yomtiv va'asaruhu, and they ruled that these kind of items are aser b'tiltel on yomtiv. Now let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cotton tezvav. Muktzah, items that are technically muktzah, afal pi shehu mutter, even though they're mutter b'tiltel on Shabbos, they're going to be aser b'tiltel on yomtiv. What kind of items are we talking about? Says the Chavetz Chaim, Pirush. The explanation of this is, the la'el b'siman shin yud, earlier in Hilchos Shabbos and Siman Shin Yud, Mizbayer, it was explained, the yesh kama mine muktzah, that there are many types of muktzah items, hamutarin b'Shabbos, even though technically you would expect them to be muktzah, they're actually mutter on Shabbos. Kemoi, for example, muktzah machmas sha'omed l'schayra. Let's say you are in the produce business and you have apples and you have sacks of apples that are in your garage that you're selling. So you have 20 sacks of apples in your garage that are for sale. And your expectation is that next week somebody's buying these apples. These apples are for sale. You do not really have an expectation that if you decide on Shabbos that you want to eat an apple, you're going to go to the garage, open up one of the sacks, and take out an apple. No, these are closed sacks that you sell. So they are oimid, like the Mishnah Berurah says here, they're oimid l'schayra. They are prepared for business use. they're for sale. They're not for use. Now, those apples on Shabbos are mutter, even though you might look at it and you might say, that apple is not muchan. That apple is not prepared for Shabbos use. You amakts it, you set it aside for business. You set it aside for sale. So why isn't it also on Shabbos? The reason it's not also on Shabbos is because the bottom line is it's an apple and it's edible. And if you really had a yen for an apple, guess what? You would go to the garage, you'd open a sack, and you take an apple. After all, they belong to you. They're your apples. So on Shabbos, we're not so machmir. And on Shabbos, those apples would be mutter. Another case, continues the Mishnah Berurah here. Or, again, we could use the example of apples. You put apples into storage. Sometimes you have a lot of food, a lot of an item, and you put it away in storage. When you put it away in storage, your mindset was, I don't need these apples now. I'm putting them away. I guess maybe potatoes, but potatoes are raw, so that gets into a whole other shadow. So sometimes you have apples, and you put them down for storage, and you really did not expect to touch these apples for another month. Yet, if you want to use one of those apples at Shabbos, you're allowed to. Or, continues the Mishnah Berurah, muktzah machmas mius. Sometimes you have something that is muktzah because it's disgusting. One of the examples we saw of this in Hilchos Shabbos is I think it said a fishing pole. So a fishing pole is something that you use with dead fish, all the time. It stinks. Or I guess you would say a graf shel rei, a baby's diaper. It's moss. It's disgusting. You don't really want to touch it. You don't really want anything to do with it. So you would think it's muktzah. It's removed from your mind. You don't have a use for it. But we know that on Shabbos, you're allowed to move something that's mos. Vayit kamagavni. And there are many more examples of this, of things that you would think should be muktzah, and on Shabbos they're mutter. Kol zeh hikelu dafka b'Shabbos. You should know the Mechaber is teaching you here, in his opinion, that these kind of items that we makel on Shabbos, we're only makel on Shabbos. The chomer le'inshi, because Shabbos is a davar chomer. People realize that Shabbos is serious business. The loy chayshinan, and therefore we're not concerned im nokeloy letaltal davar muktzah, that if you allow a person to move to be metaltal, something that seems to be muktzah, yaveh lahakel b'shari surei Shabbos. He's going to come to be makel on other Isurei Shabbos as well. Aval b'yom tov, but on Yom Tov, dekilile, where people are a little bit makel when it comes to malacha on Yom Tov, when it comes to muktzah on Yom Tov. Why? Sharei harbe malachos mutarim l'tzarech hachal nefesh. After all, on Yom Tov, a person knows he can go to the stove and he can cook. So there's a certain kula that creeps into Yom Tov by virtue of the fact that there are things that are mutter on Yom Tov that are not mutter on Shabbos. Therefore, when it comes to Yom Tov, ve'im noke loy b'muktzah, now we have to be afraid, according to the Mechaber, that if we will rule leniently by these types of muktzah on Yom Tov, yaveh lahakel gam b'shari surei Yom Tov, people will come to treat the other Yisurim of Yom Tov in a kuladika way as well. Lefikach, and therefore, asru like chachamim letaltel ula'achlai, and therefore the Chazal asred moving or eating these types of items that we're talking about here, like the apples that you put away for business, or the apples that you put down for storage. On Shabbos, they're mutter, and we're not worried that if you come to eat those apples or move those apples on Shabbos, you're going to come to be over on other Isurei Shabbos. But on Yom Tov, we're afraid if we makel a little bit for you on Yom Tov, you might come to be makel very much on Yom Tov. Well, as fi svara zu, it says the Chavetz Chaim, according to this svara, behema ha'imedes lachalova. Let's say somebody has a cow or a goat that is used for milking. This is your dairy cow. Nobody has an expectation to shecht his dairy cow. He needs his dairy cow for his milk. Or you have an egg-laying hen. So you have a hen that you keep for eggs. You don't have any intent to shecht that chicken. You want that hen for its eggs. Vishar shel charisha, or you have an ox that you use for plowing. Asar l'shachtan b'yom tov. You would not be allowed to shecht these animals on Yom Tov. You know why? Because this is another case of that kind of muktzah that we're talking about. An egg-laying hen is, to a certain extent, not mukhan for shchita. You don't have any expectation to shecht it. You want to keep this hen laying eggs for many years to come. Now you decided you need chicken on Yom Tov, and now on Yom Tov you want to go ahead and you want to shecht it. Shchita would be mutter because of eichel nefesh. So you want to go ahead and you want to shecht it. No, you can't shecht it. You know why? Because it's muktzah. According to this opinion that we're machmir on muktzah on Yom Tov, this is a precise case of where we would be machmir. We would say, really, this egg-laying hen is muktzah because you never had any intent to shecht it. So you were maktzah it midaitoi. You don't have in mind that it's available for shchita. So it's not mukhan for shchita. Unless on Erev Yom Tov you will go to that hen and you say, okay, I'm ready to shecht this hen. I'm shechting it tomorrow on Yom Tov. Then you can shecht it. V'chein kol kai gavna, and anything else like this, tzarech achana miba'od yom. It would need achana. You would have to make it muchan. You would have to prepare it for Yom Tov use. The davar shu muktzah machmas noilad. However, something which is muktzah because of the muktzah of noilad, something where its status changed on Yom Tov. It was a roi maybe for one use, and now it's a roi for a different use. There's a muktzah associated with things that are noilad. Pshita the asr ladas hamechaber, things that are a muktzah because of noilad are certainly asr according to the opinion of the mechaber b'yom tov on Yom Tov. Now we go to the Ramah. So we have the opinion of the mechaber. The opinion of the mechaber is that even in places where we're mekel by muktzah on Shabbos, we're machmer on Yom Tov. Incidentally, the reason why we're mekel on Shabbos is because we're mekel like the shita of Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon holds that these kind of items are not usher because of muktzah on Yom Tov. Even though to a certain extent they're off your mind, you will mesiach das from these items to a certain extent, like the apples that you put aside to sell. So to a certain extent you are maktzeh yourself from them. Still in all, Reb Shimon holds that these kind of items are mutter on Yom Tov. So the mechaber is saying that we paskin like Reb Shimon on Shabbos, but on Yom Tov we're machmer, and on Yom Tov we say these things are awesome. Haggah says the Ramah, however, you should know, v'yesh matirin muktzah afilu b'Yom Tov. There are those that are matir these types of muktzah even on Yom Tov. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut into Zayin v'yesh matirin t'loy chamer mishabbos, because the bottom line is these opinions say that Yom Tov is not more chamer than Shabbos. You can't tell me that something that's mutter on Shabbos is also on Yom Tov. Because of Magen Avram, b'cheinu gam kein das harashal, that the opinion of the Marshal is also like this. V'chein pasuk gam ha-pri chadash, and the pri chadash as well also says that on Yom Tov these things would be mutter the same way they're mutter on Shabbos. And the Mishnah Berurah later on in Siman Taf Tzadik Ches in Ois Katan Chav Ches says that that's the minig b'medina Yisenu. In our regions, the minig is to rule leniently and to say that these types of muktzah are mutter on Yom Tov the same way they're mutter on Shabbos. Now let's go a little weiter in the Ramah. I mean, it's the last word on the second line. Avol noilad, here comes noilad again. Things that are muktzah because of noilad, asr l'divrayim afilu b'Shabbos, even according to these opinions that are matir, they're more mekel in muktzah, but not when it comes to noilad. Things that are muktzah because of noilad are asr on Shabbos, and there would be asr on Yom Tov as well. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Katan Yud Zayin. L'divrayim. The literal, if you look at the Ramah literally, the Ramah seems to be saying that noilad is asr according to this kuladik opinion. In other words, the mechaber was very machmer. The mechaber said these types of muktzah are mutter on Shabbos, but they're asr on Yom Tov. Came along the Ramah said no, there are shitas that hold that they're mutter on Yom Tov. Then the Ramah said noilad is asr according to these kuladik opinions, who are matir mukta on Yom Tov, the same way it's mutter on Shabbos, they aser noilad even on Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cut in Yudzayin l'Devrayim. V'afta yesh paiskim mishem atirim af b'mukta de noilad. Even though there are paiskim who are lenient even by noilad, Haramah l'rotza litvais kedaitam bazeh. The Ramah did not agree with them. He rather goes with those opinions that are machmir by the muktzah of noilad. The kasva achreinim right after Shabbos nakina leikar lahater afilu b'muktzah de noilad. Even though generally speaking, and this is not a topic for here, but even though generally speaking there are kulas in noilad on Shabbos, the loy kabbalah is farazu. But on Shabbos, we can't have a heter by muktzah de noilad. Therefore, for this reason, we cannot handle bones that come off of meat. So let's say chicken bones. You ate chicken and now you have chicken bones. You ate a roast and you pulled out some bones. So we can't handle these bones that got separated from the meat, b'yomtiv on yomtiv, afal pi shehein ru'uyim l'klavim. Even though technically speaking, these bones are at least roy for a dog. Why can't you handle them? If you have a prime rib roast and you have the bones, you have a crown roast with the bones on. So while those bones were still attached to the roast, they were considered royal adam. Now, if the bone becomes separated and there's no meat on the bone, it's no longer royal adam, and now it's royal behema. So it underwent a serious status change, the heavy noilad. That would be considered noilad. Okay, we're going to stop over here. So we're up to the words of the Mechaber V'chol Muktzah, She'enoi B'Balachayim, right by the Ois Cut and Yud Ches. Thank you for joining me for Limud HaTorah. The Schus of Limud HaTorah should be making against Klal Yisrael. The Rosh should send Yeshuas and Refuas and Parnasa to all those in need. We should be Zarchet to the Bias Gel Tzedek B'Meher V'Yameinu. Be well. Yes.